Greetings, friends. Recently I was thinking about the movie Jurassic Park, the first movie, the big one that came out on June 11th of 1993. I don't know why I was thinking of this movie, but specifically I was thinking about the character Alan Grant. And I was thinking to myself, gee, in some ways, Alan Grant was kind of a cuck in that movie, or he got cucked. So I want to give kind of my MGTOW perspective on this movie. I mean, maybe it's not technically really a MGTOW video, but I want to use that lens and look at some of the characters in this movie and what happened. And we have to remember that when this movie came out in 1993, and by the way, I know there were other movies, I know there was a book, I did read the book, I don't remember it too well, and those are going to, have different interpretations. I'm just focusing on the big blockbuster movie, and it came out 6 months after Bill Clinton was inaugurated as the Democrat president of the United States. So perhaps we could say that there was a shift to the left going on in the 90s at this time. Not to say that, Steven Spielberg was influenced by that, but it's something to keep in mind that there was maybe a bit of a cultural shift. The pendulum was swinging a bit to the left, and interestingly, I do see some feminist themes in this movie, looking back on it now. To be honest, I also see some traditionalist themes as well, and I think that was more important in the 90s. They sort of had, conservatives, traditionalists, they still had more clout culturally than they do today. So there was sort of this tendency to try to satisfy both the feminists and the traditionalists. So we start off the movie with Alan Grant. He's a paleontologist, and he's working out, in some desert somewhere, digging up dino bones with his partner, his girlfriend, Ellie, who interestingly is on the same level as he is. And she's a paleobotanist, and they try to make her seem like a tough, independent woman. And, they do a good job of portraying that. But you do see in the movie that Grant has superior knowledge and superior skill as a paleontologist. I mean, she's a paleobotanist, but still, he's clearly more skilled, more capable than she is. And yet, he kind of allows her to be on this equal level with her. And then they go to Jurassic Park to take a tour, and when he shows up there with Ellie, his partner, it's not even clear that they're actually a couple, because Ian Malcolm, who I like, because Ian Malcolm is kind of like the cool guy. I wouldn't say he's the red pill guy, but he's more of a red pill guy than Alan Grant. Alan Grant is more of a blue pill guy, and he even wears the blue shirt in the movie. And you've got Ian Malcolm with his black leather jacket, black shirt, and black sunglasses, black hair. He's obviously single. I mean, you don't know that for sure, but clearly he's most of the characters there are single. In fact, the only women are Ellie and then the granddaughter of John Hammond, Lex, and then you don't see any women getting eaten in this film, I would remind you. Now, when he shows up, Ian Malcolm starts flirting with Ellie in the car, and he's flirting with her at different times. And you see, because of the way Alan Grant is, he's not asserting that he is the dominant, controlling alpha male in that relationship. And it's not even evident to Ian Malcolm that they're a couple, and he has to actually ask Grant, hey, are you guys a couple? Are you guys a thing? And Grant's like, yeah, why are you asking? And Ian Malcolm's like, oh, don't worry about it. So I like Ian Malcolm's character. He's much more personable. He has a real sense of humor. Does Grant have a sense of humor? Is he a funny guy in that movie? No, he's not funny at all. He fulfills the role of the male protagonist pretty well. He's I wouldn't say he's not the only main character, but he's kind of like the basic male protagonist. But he basically, cucks himself by allowing she's not even his wife, but allowing her, first of all, to be in the same profession, working together as an equal partner. And then he just lets anyone flirt with her, doesn't even assert that he's supposed to be the dominant one there. And then when when the movie actually develops, he ends up having to work very hard and suffer very hard, just like a good cuck, just like a good blue pill man. And I mean, I guess all the other ones do too, but particularly it's on him to save the kids. They're not even his kids, but he has to save them and get them back to reunite them with their grandfather and reunite with Ellie. So maybe that he just had to do that because he has to survive the dinosaurs anyways. But it's interesting that it ended up becoming this thing about saving the kids, reuniting with the family. It's like, that's why I say there's a bit of a traditionalist angle to this film. And I mean, technically it's not about saving the family because those aren't his kids. And that she's not even technically his wife, but they end up looking like a family. I think you would agree that towards the end of the movie, it's Alan Grant and Ellie, and then the two kids. It's like they're a family, and he has the shotgun, and he's trying to defend them from the dinosaurs. So he's suffering, and by the way, he doesn't like kids at the beginning of the movie. He doesn't. He's I don't want kids, and then Ellie's trying to tell him, you could warm up the kids. And then by the end of the movie, supposedly because he's worked so hard and saved these kids, you get the idea that when he's in the helicopter at the end and the kids are falling asleep against his shoulder, that you get the sense, okay, maybe Alan Grant is going to go and have kids after all. He'll get hitched. He'll get settled down, just like a good servant, good slave. I'm not saying that's what happens. I know there's, other movies where he appears and I don't know what the book says. It doesn't matter. This was a big blockbuster movie, and many people would never see or know any of the other productions. So that was sort of the traditionalist side to it. But then you do see this feminist side, particularly, I mentioned Ellie, the independent woman on the same level as Grant. She's tough talking if she wants to be. If she wants to be, she can be really fierce. I mean, would you really believe that? I mean, I don't know, but that's what they're portraying in this movie. And an interesting scene is when they're early on the tour, before everything goes to shit, and they stop to get out to check the Triceratops, which is sick. And Ellie is all excited in this Triceratops, and she's trying to heal it. And then a storm comes, a big tropical storm, and it's time to go. It's time to move on. Let's get back in the cars. But Ellie's like, no, I'm going to stay with the Triceratops. And meanwhile, did you notice the male park ranger, or whoever he is, one of the employees of the park? He's kind of standing behind her, like looking like a buffoon. He's probably thinking to himself, well, I guess I'll just go along with whatever this chick wants to do. And all the rest of the tour group gets back into their cars, leaving Ellie there. And I'm thinking to myself, if you're Alan Grant, why the hell are you letting your girlfriend do this? You got to tell her, listen, baby, get back in the fucking car. There's a tropical storm coming. This is the first time we've been in this park. There's dinosaurs around here. What the hell are you doing? Get back in the fucking car. We got to stay together. But no, he didn't do that, did he? He didn't do that. And then that could have arguably caused even more complications. And by the way, it was Ellie getting out of the car in the first place, which is against the rules, that led to the delay, because that delayed everything. And then if that delay hadn't happened, they would have gotten back to the home base before Nedry cut the power, and there would have never been people dying. So Ellie, her impulsive, childlike nature, but also her need to be the strong feminist woman, led to a lot of blood and death. But particularly, it should have been Grant. Grant should have stopped her from doing that right at the beginning. So if he shows himself to be responsible and hardworking in other ways during the film, that's because he's a good male cuck. But essentially, if you look at it through this MGTOW lens, you see, aha, he's making mistakes right from the beginning. He should never even have been with Ellie in the first place. He should not even have been with her. And then basically later on, when Ellie has to go to the power shed to turn on the power, John Hammond and Ian Malcolm are both looking at her like, are you sure you want to do that? I mean, you're a woman. Do you want to? And she's like, what? What, you don't think I can do that? And then they sort of, they lay off. And then, she has to be fierce and assertive and independent, and that's the feminist aspect to this movie. And you notice how all the males are deferring. Not all the male characters in this movie are buffoons. There's a lot of interesting characters, but a lot of the males are kind of like buffoons, and notice how only men are getting eaten by female dinosaurs, because all the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park are female. I mean, sometimes some of them mutate to male, but generally it was originally supposed to be all female dinosaurs. Isn't that interesting? Females devouring males. Be careful. Now, Ellie, she has the shotgun. She goes and she takes care of the Triceratops. She does these other sort of independent things, while some of the men are doing nothing other than getting eaten by dinosaurs or fucking up the system. And then we come to John Hammond, who's the architect, the mastermind, the wealthy man who financed all of this. And I think of him as kind of a cuck too. And I mean, you don't really know his backstory. I don't know what the book would say, but he seems to me like a man who has had at least one other business failure before, and he probably had at least one failed marriage already before. You get the sense he's single, but he probably has gone through several failures, but he just happens to be lucky and have a lot of money. He's probably from a rich family. And then, he lives in this fantasy. He wants to keep satisfying women. And I may be reading into it too much, but I know he wants to satisfy families. He wants his theme park to give families a great experience. But when you're satisfying families, you have to satisfy the lowest common denominator in the family, which is the females. So therefore, any theme park is naturally a cucked space. It's a space that has to appeal to the lowest common denominator, the females, and keep them happy. So in a way, indirectly, he's trying to recreate this fantasy that he's never abandoned, that he can make women happy. But he can never do it. But he's going to take that desire with him to the grave. I mean, he doesn't die in this movie. He dies in the book, actually. He gets killed by those little tiny... That would have been good if they kept that in the movie, but they got rid of it. So anyways, he kind of wants to create this theme park, but it's just because he's a big cuck. And look, he creates it all with female dinosaurs. He cuts corners here and there. He has a barely, just a minimum amount of staff. And it all goes to shit because he was willing to trust, himself, and he doesn't even know what he's doing. So when it comes to the girl, Lex, as opposed to Tim, you get the sense that Lex is more capable than Tim. I mean, she's a bit older, maybe that, on purpose, but still, it was kind of like interesting that towards the end of the movie, when they're escaping from the dinosaurs and they have to lock the door very quickly, but the computer system is messed up, and Lex suddenly, she's like, I know code, I can do this, and she's like doing code, and she's fixing the computer system, and then she saves them that way. And it's just like, what? You know code? Like, is that really realistic? Even in the early 90s, like, not too many people are going to know code. More people would be starting to know it. But then this, like, 14-year-old girl, or 13-year-old girl, she knows how to code well enough that she can, influence this theme park security system. That's kind of a bit of a stretch, I'd say. So basically, Jurassic Park, it does have these traditionalist elements. Grant, he works his ass off, he suffers, he saves the kids who aren't even his kids, he lets his partner on the same level as him, even though she's clearly not as capable, clearly not as knowledgeable. He doesn't have any sense of humor. The joke's often on him. Ian Malcolm should be the one laughing at him, because Ian Malcolm's the smart guy, the cool guy, at least in that movie. Later on they bring him in. And then, of course, besides the traditionalist element of, the family is sacred, having kids is a good idea, they're trying to tell you. And then, of course, the feminist agenda. Ellie, she can do anything just like a man can, even better. Lex, she can do anything just like any boy can, even better. In fact, the boys are not as great as the girls, because, you can't have the girls or the women getting eaten. Only the men get eaten by the voracious females, the velociraptors. And that's all I have to say for now. Hasta luego, amigos.